Hey, you took me to the moon.
What's up, you guys? That was a quick little performance on the new MPC XL and MPC Live III by Akai Pro. Just to give you a little rundown of what was going on there, I was using them both in standalone mode, so with all the built-in sounds and effects. They were tempo synced via Ableton Link, and I was just taking the direct stereo outs of each of them to record into Ableton. I want to start out by giving a huge shout out to Sweetwater for the opportunity to try out these units and review them for you guys. If you can, I recommend you get your gear from Sweetwater. The links in the description are also affiliate links, so if you do use those, it's a great way to support the channel, and I really appreciate that. Just to give a little background, the MPC X, which is the predecessor to this unit here, was actually in a lot of ways my gateway into music production back in 2017. It was the first major gear investment that I made, and it was just like the beginning of my journey as Neon Vines. So MPC does hold a special place in my heart for that reason. Since then, I mean, I've had some incredible opportunities to work directly with Akai on a number of different product launches. So all that to say, I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone that really does use MPC as part of my workflow, both in production and live performance. I'm excited to talk you through some of my favorite new features, kind of demo them in a musical context, and then do sort of like a side-by-side comparison. If you're thinking about getting one, hopefully I can help you figure out which one's best for you. So let's get into it. Sorry, guy. This freaking gnat, dude. This gnat, he's got to go. So I figured the best way to do this is to just start out by making a beat. I did not plan this part of the video, so hopefully the beat doesn't suck, but let's just go ahead and pull up one of the new MPCe Expressive kits. I'm just going to go to their genre kits here and literally just pick the first one. And let's see what we're working with. All right, I think we can do something with that. So definitely one of my favorite new features that they've added is the fact that you now have 4 quadrants on each pad. So you can play a different sample on each of the 4 corners, which essentially turns 16 pads into 64 pads, which is amazing. Really expands the potential what you can do. On this kit here, we've got kind of like 4 very similar sounding hi-hats, but depending where you hit the pad, you can get different types of expression. Let's see if they have something on Melodics. Yeah, so you can also drag across the pads and get different expression that way. There's some kind of stutter effect on that one. So I'm just going to lay something down and just see what we got here. I'm kind of thinking something like... So that's like 82-ish. Let's set it to 2 bars, not 4 bars, since we're going with the slower tempo. And I'm just going to overdub record, just kind of layer some parts on top of it and see what we got. Some percussion. A little guitar loop. Let's do one louder. Got the downbeat. Oh, let's add some bass. I think we can work with that. So another cool thing is if you don't want to manually play your drum beat in, you can actually program it in using the new step sequencer buttons here, which is a really cool way, alternative way to make a beat. I'll just demo that really quickly by using a blank clip here. It's just set to 1 bar, so just for demo purposes, we'll make it 1 bar. First, we'll just put snare on 2 and 4, 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So I kind of think of these as 16th notes. Let's do a kick pattern now. Boom, 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 boom. I don't know, just something random. And then hi-hats, let's just put them all on all the 16ths. Everything I just put in is going to be full volume, full velocity. So let's see what it sounds like. Yeah, it's cool. It's not that expressive though, right? So what we can do really easily is hold down Q-Link button, set it to step sequencer, and now I can just lower some of these velocities so they're not all full blast, kind of add some variation to the volume on those hi-hat hits. It's a little better. Let's do a little more extreme on some of them. I can also hold down set on the step sequencer control buttons and select step edit. So now I can individually select some of these hi-hat notes and add like a ratchet. So a ratchet is like a hi-hat roll basically. I'm going to throw a couple of these on. I'm not really thinking about where I'm putting them. You can also adjust the probability of the ratchets happening so they don't happen every time it loops, just a certain percentage of the time. It's also fun to vary the timing of some of the hits. So if I select a note, I can go to nudge, kind of nudge it a little later, some of these a little later, some a little earlier, to get some natural variation. If I go down here to modifiers, I can also individually alter the tuning of these hits. So let's say I want this one to be a little sharper, this one to be a little flat, sharp. I'm just choosing random notes right now. And let's see what it sounds like with that. So you can see how it would be super fun to just play with this. I'm going to go back to the one that I played in manually for the rest of the video. It's also really awesome that these buttons here don't have to be a step sequencer. You can decide how you want them to function. Some other really cool modes for them are track select, which is simple. You just go set to track select at the bottom here. And now I can easily switch between the different tracks in my session. Right now we only have a drum kit, so let me just add a track real quick, just a plug-in track. And I can switch between that instrument sound and the drum kit really easily. There's a bunch of different ways to change tracks on MPC. Another really good one is if you hold down main, and I can switch between them this way. They'll show up in the order they are in your session. But the reason I like it on the pad grid is because, particularly for live performance, it's right where my hands are when I'm playing a part. If you watch my performance at the beginning of this video, you'll see how seamlessly I'm able to change sounds using the pad grid track select. Another favorite mode of mine is called Q-Link pad grid. Hold set, click Q-Link pad grid, and now it's essentially in custom mode. So these buttons can now do whatever I want them to do. For demonstration's sake, I'm gonna assign some flex beat effects to them. Flex beat is a really cool kind of DJ, I guess, style effects, like beat repeats and stuff like that. I'm just gonna put it on the master here. I think it's in harmonic. Yep. Need my coconut water. So this is a really intuitive effects plugin to use. Each of these squares represents a different effect when I press it. Now that effect's going to happen when I play back the audio. This bottom square just means no effects are happening. Just for setup real quick, I'm going to go into edit down here and set the ones. I'm just going to pick some random ones to use. I'm going to set them to hold instead of loop, because loop I try to avoid with effects like this because they just get stuck on. I want to be able to hold down the effect, and then when I release my hand, I want the effect to stop and go back to nothing. One other step for the setup, I'm going to go into Q-Link's edit over here. At the bottom, I'm going to select pad grid, which is already lit up because that's where we're going to make the assignment. And then I'm going to check my learn settings, and they're set to toggle. I don't want it on toggle, actually. I just want to turn that off for these. And now we can go back to flex beat. And now we're ready to make some assignments. So I'm just going to assign 4 effects to these buttons here on the pad grid. To do it is really straightforward. You just hold down shift, press the button where you want to make the assignment. It flashes white to indicate it's ready to receive its assignment. And then I'm just going to give it scratch 1. This next button, I'll give it complex. And then this one can have snare roll, and this one, whatever this is, trance. And I always set 1 to empty when I do it this way, because Sometimes the effects just get stuck. You know, MPC isn't perfect. There's some bugs and things like that occasionally. So I want to have a panic button for these just in case something gets stuck and I freak out. So I can go Shift, press the blinking button. Now all our assignments have been made and we're ready to try them out. Let's see what they sound like. All right, so they're kind of cool, like stutter style effects. They're kind of extreme, but they're cool for occasional use. Something else I've been finding really useful recently is assigning my drum pad mutes to the pad grid here. And that's so that I can take out just my kick drum, just my snare, just hi-hats, you know, on the fly. You can do it in pad mute. Super easy way to do it as well, but I kind of prefer to do it this way because I can have access to them wherever I am and whatever I'm doing on the unit. So to do that, I can go into Q-Link Edit just to check some of my settings here. We are still in pad grid at the bottom. Let's check my learn settings for this. I actually want toggle for this because I want to press the pad so that it mutes the kick, press it again for the unmute. And now we're ready to make some assignments. So I can just go right into pad mute mode, hold Shift, press the first pad. Now it's ready to receive its assignment. I'll assign it the kick drum mute. The second one can be the snare drum mute. Third one, let's do like all top stuff like hi-hats, percussion, and that shaker. Fourth one can be that guitar loop, and I'll just do one for the bass as well. So now I can click Shift again, press the blinking button. All these mutes have been assigned. You can tell they're muted because they're blinking in pad mute mode. Now I have control over them here. So when I press these buttons, they turn yellow and all my pads are now active again. So now I can just be in main mode or wherever and be able to mute and unmute my drums. So let's do an example. So now I have effects and drum mutes all kind of in the same place. We can expand on this even further by bringing in the touch strip. So the first time you touch the touch effects button, touch effects gets inserted on your master in the session. So we now have access to 20 kind of basic style effects that are just on your project as a whole. I usually set it to low pass because it's just kind of like standard effect. But there's a lot of cool other ones. Flanger's kind of fun to play with. You got to be careful with it because it can be extreme and cartoony. But I usually go Shift, Configure, kind of lower the dry wet so it's just not as extreme. Yeah, you got to be careful with flanger sometimes, but it can be fun. I'm just going to go back to my low pass here. I can also click the touch strip button here. If I hold it down, I can see what I have access to with this button. The two most useful features here are probably Q-Link and pad level, I would say. Pad level is really handy for setting the volume levels of your drum pads. Just really quick way to do it. Kick, if I wanted it softer, boom. Snare, lower. Hi-hats, louder. You know, just really fast way to adjust levels. Q-Link mode is essentially the custom mode for the touch strip. That's the mode I was in at the beginning of this video when I did that turntable solo. I was actually modulating the semitone of the samples, so just kind of playing with the pitch of the samples while I was playing them. To set up a custom mapping with the touch strip button, it's a little interesting the way it works. You have to first set up a mapping on a Q-Links knob, and then it links to the touch strip. So to just show you how that works, we can go into Q-Link Edit up here, go down to the bottom at Q-Links, hold down this button because I think we're still in step sequencer. So I want to go to Project 2 setting for these Q-Links knobs. Basically just give me a blank set so I can make all my custom assignments. I'm going to check my learn settings and it's on toggle. I actually want it to be on range for this because this is going to be a spectrum style effect from 0 to 100% and I want control that way. I think I saw on the effects of this track that there's Air Flavor, which is a pretty fun plugin, by the way. It's sort of like a tonal shaping plugin, kind of good for like lo-fi and things like that. But I'm actually going to map the timbre depth to this Q-Link knob. To do that, I hold Shift, press Learn up here, and it's ready to receive the assignment. I can tap whatever knob I want it on, but I'm just going to put it on the first one and adjust the parameter I want. And now that has been assigned to the knob, I can hold shift again, press learn. Now the assignment has been made. Let's go back to Q-Link Edit, make sure everything went in right. I'm going to adjust the range down to 0 to 100. And another thing we have to do for this plugin is actually set the type of timbre we want. And there's some pretty cool options in here. I don't know, like earbuds, like telephone. Let's just go with megaphone 2. I don't really know what that is, but let's hear what it sounds like. Yeah, so it's kind of like some kind of filtery type of plugin. To map that to the touch strip, we now can hold down touch strip, click Q-Link mode, and now whatever Q-Link we select, we can also control with the touch strip. Which at first I wasn't sure if I liked that design, but now I kind of see why they made it that way, because if I had a bunch of different effects assignments here on the knobs, I could just tap one, alter that one with the touch strip, tap another, and just really quickly shift between them. That being said, I do wish there was a lock button, because when I'm performing live, it's really easy to just like accidentally snag one of these knobs, and now I'm adjusting like the volume of my whole song. So, you know, it would just be nice to have that as a feature. For this effect, I also want to go back into Q-Link Edit here and set it to momentary, so that when I turn the knob and turn the effect up, I want it to just go back to 0 when I release it, so that I don't have to manually turn it back to 0 every time. Just make things easier. So now we have some pretty cool things to play around with. We have a filter, we have some DJ kind of stutter effects, we have pad mutes, and now this new Flavor Pro assignment of tone. So we have a lot of different options right in front of us. So let's play around with it. Let's take this even a step further. There's another cool feature that you can actually assign an effect to a pad on your drum rack. So you can control the effect using a pad. You can keep a sample on it when you do this, but for this case, I'm just going to go Shift, Delete, and I'm just going to delete the wind chimes. So now there's no sample there. I'm going to do something like a chorusy type of thing. Let's see. I think it's in modulation. I also wish that you could favorite effects in here so that your starred ones would like show up at the top. That would be really handy. I'm going to do air ensemble. It's kind of a chorusy style effect. Just turn the mix all the way down. To make this assignment, we go into Q-Link Edit over here. At the bottom bar, let's select MPCe Pads, because that's where we're going to be making the assignment. We have to select the pad, and it's A8. And I put the effect on the master because we were out of space on the track, so I actually have to make sure to set the mode to project. I can control this effect using the X-axis, the Y-axis, and pressure. So whether I go from left to right, up, down, or how hard I'm pressing into the pad. The really cool thing is you can have a different effect controlled by each way of touch. So they can all kind of be interwoven in some really interesting ways depending on how you're interacting with the pad. In this case, I'm just going to use the X-axis. That's what it's set to on there. I'm going to check my learn settings. Yep, we're good. It's set to range. Now we can find the effect here, air ensemble, and I'm going to go Shift, learn. It's ready to receive the assignment. I can just move this parameter, the mix, and now it's been assigned. I go Shift, press learn again. The assignment's been made. I always make sure I go back into Q-Link Edit and I look at the parameter range, and a lot of times it's not fully set to 0 or 100, so I just go there and I make it so it's 0 to 100. And now we can play with this kind of chorusy style effect using the X-axis on this pad. So now we have access to all kinds of expression and effects on just this one kit, and we don't have to change modes or go into any other screens. Everything is right in front of us, ready for access. I can just be on main and have access to everything I need to have a really expressive performance. I just randomly assign stuff so I'm not fully in the flow of like where everything is, but it's still fun to just push random buttons and see what happens. This is the kind of thing that I personally could just do for like hours in the studio, just jamming, you know, just making it happen, being expressive and having fun. Let's add one more thing. We're going to go into Q-Link Edit, and down at the bottom here where it says XY Pad, this is another really fun way to do effects. Let's go full screen. You can use this in a lot of really cool ways. You can actually have an effect per column. So I can have an effect here, 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 and by row. So, I mean, that's pretty extreme if you had a different one for every row and column, but you could. And you'd probably get some pretty insane results. But for now, I'm just going to set it to X-axis, which is just me moving from side to side. And I think I saw that there was a delay. Yeah. So the delay is currently at 0. Yeah, we'll assign the delay to the XY pad. So I can go Shift, Learn, it's ready to receive. I touch the parameter, it's been assigned. I can exit this by going Shift, Learn again, and we're ready to go. So now let's just check the range there. Yeah, so the range, you see, I just want to make sure it's at 0 to 100 on that delay. Let me just see one other thing on the delay here. Let's do a little high pass filter or something. Okay, cool. All right, now let's put it all together and just use as many effects as possible. Let's do... So you can see how fun this can be. This is just me throwing on random effects, like not planning. But if you really want to refine everything and bring it together, like you can be so expressive with one track in your session. This is just one drum track, one bank. All these other banks are blank. And I don't have to change modes. I don't have to go to different screens. Everything is directly in front of me. And just as like a side note, I guess, my sort of philosophy is if I can have access to everything I need visually and in a tactile way in front of me, I prefer that. That to me is like a very streamlined workflow because I can very clearly see if these are red, they're muted, you know? If an effect is red, it means it's active. So I can just kind of maneuver around and feel very in control of my session. For live performance in particular, this is major. It also gets really interesting when you start to add different plug-in instruments and things like that. Right now we just have a drum track, you know? So if I wanted to, just for demo purposes, do new track, add a plug-in instrument track, and let's just go to sounds here and maybe something saw. Yeah, like Lonely Saw or something. I don't really know what this is, but cool. Let's go into notes mode here. I believe we're in C sharp minor. Yeah, we're in C sharp minor. Cool. So I'm going to just mute my melodics from the drum kit. I don't really know if this is going to work, but putting a stutter effect on like a synthy bass or really bright airy pads can be really fun when you just modulate the subdivision of the stutter. That sounds really complicated, but it's not that complicated. So on here, on the effects, I'm going to add an air stutter. I think it's in modulation. Yes, it is. And let's open this up here. So to make this assignment real quick, I just want to go into Q-Link Edit, go down to Q-Links, hold down Q-Links, and okay, we're still in Project 2. Good. I'm going to assign the interval to a Q-Link knob. The interval I think of as subdivision, so the rate of the stutter. If I hold down Shift, Learn, it's ready to receive its assignment. I'll just adjust that stutter, and now it's been learned. Shift, Learn, and we're out of it. Let's go back into Q-Link Edit just to make sure that range, yeah, that's fine. Let's go all the way down, actually. And now we can control the stutter with this knob. If I go into Touch Strip, which is still set to Q-Links, I can actually control this with the Touch Strip too. One other cool thing is you can set cue links to screen mode here. If I go to screen mode, now all the LEDs have auto-populated to the most relevant parameters shown on the touchscreen, so I don't have to interact with the touchscreen nearly as much. I can go right here and just adjust the attack of that envelope. I'm going to go into effects and just shorten the delay time a little bit because it's just a little extreme. So let's see. I mean, this probably isn't going to work that well for this beat, but just to show you how fun it can be to play around with this, let's do it. And I have not intended to neglect the beautiful Live 3 over here. I just really stayed on the XL mostly for continuity's sake. It's also bigger, easier to demonstrate on. And now I want to move into talking about both of these units and how they compare to each other. What are their strong suits, kind of what scenarios warrant one or the other. When it comes to comparing the MPC XL with the Live 3, it's pretty interesting because in terms of software, they're running the same software. So functionally speaking, they can do almost all of the same things. Everything I just did with this beat here could be done on the Live 3. The real differences lie in the physical design layout and the actual hardware. So it might look like, you know, the XL has a lot more buttons, so it must be able to do more things. That's not the case. It's just that the XL has a very expanded layout. To get to these functions, there would just be more menu diving involved on the Live 3. You have to rely on the touchscreen more than dedicated buttons that you have access to on the XL. So it is a pretty significant workflow difference when I move between the two of them. Probably the biggest differences between them is the fact that the Live 3 is designed to be more portable. It has a built-in speaker, a built-in microphone, and it can run on just battery power for up to like 4 hours, so it can be wireless. It's the perfect piece of gear to just like throw in a backpack and go to a friend's house and just jam out. You know, everybody can just enjoy it. It's really a big selling point for the Live 3, honestly. I bring it everywhere with me when I travel, just really convenient. The XL is designed to be kind of a studio centerpiece, probably meant to be more of a stationary piece of gear that doesn't get moved around too much. It does have more connectivity options on the back, double as many CV gate ports, a couple extra outputs and USB ports, but honestly, not that big of a difference, to be real. If I'm being completely honest, in terms of my preference, I would choose the XL personally because like I was saying before, I really value access to all the features that I need simultaneously, particularly for my kind of workflow and especially for live performance, because the more I can visualize and see everything I need, the more in control I am over my session. I work very quickly, and I just need to be able to have access to things fast. Even when it comes down to like a dedicated pad mute and track mute button, that to me is just like, oh, thank you, you know? But with that being said, I probably would recommend like 90% of people to the Live 3. It's going to be perfectly sufficient for most people's needs. You're going to be really happy with it. It can do everything you need it to do. It doesn't have the same expanded workflow, so I honestly think it takes a little longer to learn for that reason. You just have to learn the workflow of how to navigate to the features that you need. But like, end of the day, they're both incredible. It would be impossible to regret buying either of them. And this is not me like trying to oversell it or something. I really just believe like these are cutting edge designs. They've really been so refined. The new partnership with Native Instruments is legendary. I always kind of thought of Machine and MPC as rivals, but the fact that they've joined forces now is crazy. The new sounds that you can have on these units, unbelievable. Compared to the previous generations, these designs are next level. The thing about MPC is there's a lot of tradition around it, and they've done a really good job of honoring the tradition while also bringing in, you know, modern music technology and just modernizing the units. One other thing I wanted to mention is that analog cases makes the perfect stands for these MPCs. I didn't have them on the stands in this video just because it's easier to film them when they're flat, but After I'm done filming this, they're going to go right back on the stands. They work for a lot of different types of gear too. I put a link in the description to those if you guys want to check them out. Also, I have a Patreon. I'm trying to figure out what to do with it. So maybe you guys can help me. Like, what kinds of content do you want to see from me? There's so much I could do. I just don't know like what would be the most interesting for people. So if you have feedback on that, that would be really cool too. And one last time, just want to give a huge thank you to Sweetwater for sponsoring this video. This video wouldn't exist without them. So thank you. I love you. And thank you guys for watching this entire thing. I'll see you next time. Bye.